My 6-year-old adopted daughter was told to wait in the hallway at my mother's 60th birthday party. "This part is for family only," someone said. I didn't argue. I just said, "We're heading home." But when the family reunion came, I made one quiet change and the entire family lost it. I should have known the night was doomed the moment my mother texted black tie optional. No sneakers, even for the little ones, because nothing says family celebration like a dress code. Still, Lena was thrilled. Her first big party with her new family. She kept asking if she'd get to sit next to Grandma. She'd practiced her line, "Happy birthday," in front of the mirror all week. I told her she'd do great. I wanted to believe that was true. The restaurant was loud and shiny, full of people who'd rather be photographed than hugged. My mother stood at the head of the room, glowing like a chandelier. She hugged me lightly, the way you might pat a coworker. Then she bent down just long enough to say, "Hi, sweetheart," before turning away. Lena didn't notice. She never expects much. There was a kids' table in the back, 4 older cousins. They talked about video games and laughed too loud. Lena was 6, quiet, careful, trying to keep up. I watched her from across the room. She looked happy. Or maybe she was trying to look happy. In my family, that's basically the same thing. Then my mother raised her glass. Everyone quiet for the toast. Chairs scraped. Waiters filled glasses. I turned for mine, looked back toward the kids' table, and froze. Lena's chair was empty, crayons scattered, cup half full, her sweater draped over the back like she'd vanished mid-sentence. The other kids were still there. I pushed back my chair and stood. My husband looked at me, confused. "Bathroom," he whispered. "Maybe," I said, though I already knew she wouldn't have gone without telling me. I slipped between tables, scanning the room. No yellow dress. No tiny sneakers. I checked near the buffet, the restroom door, even the corner where the dessert cart waited. Nothing. I stopped a cousin who was balancing 2 glasses of wine. "Hey, have you seen Lena?" He blinked, thinking. Your mom said the little ones should wait in the hallway for the toast." "She's fine, I think." "The little ones?" I said. "You mean my little one?" "Because every other child is still sitting right there." He gave a helpless shrug and slipped away, grateful to escape whatever was coming. I walked straight to my parents' table. My mother saw my face and sighed the way she always does when I ruin her party. "Sweetheart, we just thought the children might get restless. It's only a few minutes." "The children?" I said. "You mean Lena? The other kids are still inside." She adjusted her earrings, too calm. "It's just for family. We didn't want her to feel awkward." My father gave a short laugh. "You're making this bigger than it is. She'll be fine." For a moment, I couldn't speak. The music, the laughter, all of it blurred into one dull roar. "She's 6, I said quietly. "And you already taught her exactly where she stands." I turned and walked toward the hallway. She was there, standing by the coat rack, clutching her birthday card to her chest. Her eyes were red. "Hey," I said gently, "what are you doing out here?" She didn't look up. "Grandma said it's just for family." The words came out small, practiced, like she'd repeated them to herself to make them make sense. "Did she?" I asked, though I already knew. Lena nodded. "She said I can come back when they're done." She hesitated. "Did I do something bad?" "No," I said, "you didn't do anything wrong." Her lip trembled. "Are you sending me back?" I felt something twist inside me. Sharp, deep. "Never," I said, "not ever." She pressed her face into my shoulder and finally cried, quiet, shaking sobs that soaked through my sleeve. I held her until the noise from the dining room turned into a faint, distant hum. Back inside, the toasts were over. People were laughing again, raising glasses, pretending everything was perfect. I found my husband. "We're leaving." He looked at me once, saw my face, and didn't argue. Someone called after us. "It's almost over," but we were already gone. Outside, the night air was cold. Lena's small hand was damp in mine. "Are we in trouble?" she asked. "No," I said, "we're just done." In the car, she sat very still, the card crushed in her lap. Streetlights flickered across her face as we drove. "The other kids stayed," she whispered. "I was being good. I kept my eyes on the road. You were perfect." She fell asleep before we got home, still holding the card. I sat in the driveway long after the engine stopped, staring at the faint glitter on the seat where she'd been sitting. My mother's words looped in my head. "It's just for family." That night, I didn't call anyone. I didn't explain. I just lay awake, counting the ways you can lose people you thought you already lost once. And somewhere between midnight and morning, I made myself a promise. When the family reunion came, I'd make one quiet change. And this time, they'd understand exactly what family means. If you'd asked me before the party, I would have said my childhood was normal, nothing dramatic, no tragic backstory, just a house where people pretended everything was fine. Because it usually was. I had one older brother, Mark, who married early, had kids early, and instantly became the golden child by producing grandchildren before I could even commit to houseplants. My parents adored him for it. Their whole world became soccer practices, birthday parties, and fridge photos of their boys. I didn't mind. I told myself I was happy being the career daughter, the reliable one who mailed birthday cards on time. We all play our parts. Mine was a supporting character with a solid income. Then came the years of trying for a baby that never happened. You don't realize how loud silence is until you're waiting for a heartbeat that never shows up on the screen, until the technician turns the monitor away and says she'll give the doctor a minute to come in. After a few of those, I stopped keeping track of the months. My mother's advice: stop thinking about it so much. That's when it happens, right? Because infertility and miscarriages are just bad vibes. Eventually, I stopped trying. I thought, fine, maybe motherhood isn't in the cards for me. But the wanting didn't switch off. It just sat there, quiet and constant, like background noise. A friend from work had adopted me 2 years earlier and told me about the process. Home studies, interviews, classes, and waiting. I filled out the forms, half believing nothing would come of it. The agency said it could take years. I decided I'd rather wait than never try. Nearly a year later, my caseworker called. "There's a little girl we'd like you to meet," she said. "Her name's Lena. 5 years old, dark curls, big eyes, half a smile, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to have the whole thing." The caseworker warned me she was quiet but resilient. Translation: she'd already learned that adults were unpredictable. Her biological parents had left her alone too many times until someone finally stopped pretending they'd come back. When I met her, she barely spoke. She watched me the way you'd watch a storm, like she needed to figure out if I was the kind that passed or destroyed. I reached out my hand. She didn't take it right away, but when she finally did, she didn't let go. That was it. I was gone. Completely done for. When I told my parents I wanted to adopt her, they smiled like someone had just offered them unsalted oatmeal. My mother said, "Oh, honey, you never know what those kids have been through." My father added, "If it's meant to be, it'll happen." I asked, "So if it's not, I just stay childless because fate's lazy?" They laughed, thinking I was joking. I wasn't. They didn't forbid me. That's not their style. They just made sure I knew they disapproved without ever saying the word disapprove. Polite sabotage. That's their native language, but I did it anyway, because for the first time in years, something felt right. The first time I brought Lena to their house, she was still in foster placement. My mother greeted her with a tone reserved for distant relatives' pets. "Well, aren't you precious?" She gave her a cookie, took one photo, and later whispered to me in the kitchen, "She hardly talks. Maybe she needs professional help." "She's 5, I said. "She needs time." "Still, you don't know what her parents were like." That was the first of many comments disguised as concern. Maybe she's too quiet. Maybe she's behind. Maybe she's fragile. Maybe they were looking for reasons to keep her at arm's length. I told myself they'd warm up once it was official. People like to say blood doesn't matter. In my family, it was a promise they couldn't quite keep. A year later, the adoption was finalized. I called my parents, expecting a celebration. My mother said, "That's wonderful, dear," the same way she reacts to good parking spots. They sent a card with congratulations printed in gold foil, nothing handwritten. The next time we visited, my mom had a photo collage on the wall labeled grandkids, 4 frames, my brother's boys in each. Lena's photo sat on a side table next to a lamp, like a guest who hadn't earned a permanent place yet. When family photos were taken that Christmas, she somehow ended up on the edge of the group, half cut off. "Oh, it's just the way the lighting worked," my mother said. Sure, I noticed. Lena noticed, but I said nothing. Sometimes silence feels safer than starting another war you know you'll lose. Meanwhile, my parents' lives rolled on like a luxury cruise. Mark's kids, my mother's yoga classes, my father's golf, and me, the one with a decent job and a guilt complex, usually picking up the bill without anyone asking. Most months I sent money for the house, or for the trip, and no one ever mentioned it again. It stopped feeling generous after a while and started feeling automatic. I also handled the annual family reunion, the lake weekend every summer, booked the cabins, paid the deposits, built the spreadsheets. My mother treated it like weather, something that just happened every year. And I told myself it was fine, that this was how love worked in my family, quiet transactions disguised as tradition. Even in that first year after the adoption, I could feel the tilt. At birthdays, my mother would hand gifts to the grandkids first, then remember Lena at the end. "Oh, and one for you too, sweetie." Lena would smile, but her fingers always clenched the ribbon too tight. Once, my father introduced her to a neighbor as my daughter's little girl. Not granddaughter. Just little girl. That one word told me everything. I kept hoping they change, that if they just saw her laugh, or draw, or read them, a story, they realize she wasn't a charity case. She was a child who already been left once, and was still brave enough to try again. So when my mother turned 60, and decided to throw a party, I thought, this is it. Their chance to prove me wrong. To prove her wrong too. The little girl who still asked, do they like me now? After every visit, I told Lena this is going to be fun. Everyone's going to be there. She beamed. Like a real family. Exactly like that, I said, and I almost believed it. Almost. My husband drove. Neither of us said much. Lena sat in the back seat, holding her birthday card like evidence. Every few minutes she asked, "Are you mad at me?" And I kept saying no until the words stopped sounding true. We stopped for ice cream because that's what parents do when they don't know what else to fix. She took one bite, said her stomach hurt, and stared out the window. The pink scoop melted down her wrist. At home, she asked, "They don't like me, do they?" I said, "They just don't understand yet." My husband nodded. The kind of nod that means, "Please don't cry right now." When she whispered, "You're not going to send me back," something inside me locked into place. I tucked her in, waited until her breathing evened out, then stood in the doorway for a long time. My husband came up behind me. "What now?" he asked. "Now," I said, "we make sure it never happens again." The reunion was only a few weeks away, Lake Weekend, our annual pilgrimage to nostalgia. My parents had started it when I was a teenager, and every year I somehow ended up planning it. Cabins booked under my name, spreadsheets, grocery lists, the usual illusion of togetherness. I sat at the kitchen table looking at the list of attendees like it was a roll call of bad decisions. My husband poured coffee and said, "You don't have to do it this year. I already paid the deposits." Then cancel. I was about to agree when a small voice came from the hallway. "Are you canceling because of me?" She was in her pajamas, hair tangled from sleep, bear tucked under her arm. That one question rewrote the plan. "You kneel down here." "No, sweetheart, we're still going. We're just choosing who belongs there." She nodded, but her shoulders stayed tight. I could see she didn't believe me yet. The next morning, I called my parents. My mother answered, sounding like she'd been expecting a medal. "Natalie, I'm so glad you called. How's our girl?" "She's not yours to ask about," I said. "You knew about her history. You knew what being left alone does to her, and you still did it." A pause. Then that familiar sigh, equal parts patience and superiority. "Oh, don't be dramatic." It was only a few minutes, my father's voice in the background. "You're too sensitive. You'll make her fragile." "Too late," I said, and hung up before they could say anything else. 5 minutes later, I opened the family group chat. This year's Lake Weekend will still happen, but only for people who treat Lena as family. If that's uncomfortable, let me know so I can free your cabin. I stared at the screen, then added another message before courage could leak out. "If you think what happened at the party was acceptable, you're choosing to stay home. I need to know who's with me on this." Then I put my phone face down and made coffee. Revenge, apparently, smells like French roast. By lunchtime, the notifications were constant. "Mom, you can't uninvite your own parents from a family reunion." "Brother, we're not taking sides in your drama." "Aunt, you're forcing people to choose. That's cruel." Cousin Erin, privately. "You're right, I saw her face that night. I'd have left too." I didn't reply to any of them. I just started editing the guest list. Within an hour, half the cabins were freed. End. I filled them with my husband's relatives, a couple of friends, and the parents of one of Lena's classmates. People who actually smiled when they said her name. When my mother realized I'd replaced them, she sent one final message. "You'll regret this." I typed, "You've already made sure I won't," and deleted it before hitting send. Planning the new weekend felt lighter. No speeches, no matching shirts, no pretending. Lena helped me design new name tags with tiny drawings of fish and trees. For once, she looked excited instead of careful. "Will Grandma be there?" she asked. No, she didn't say anything, but her shoulders dropped and her face softened in quiet relief. When we arrived at the lake, the air smelled like pine and smoke. The cabins looked the same as always, but everything else felt different. Quiet in a good way. We grilled, we swam, we built a bonfire that lasted past midnight. Lena ran around barefoot with the other kids, sticky with marshmallow, laughing until she hiccuped. Someone handed me a drink and said, "You look calmer," I said. "That's because half my family's missing." The night hummed with the kind of peace that makes you nervous to breathe too loud. The fire crackled. The lake barely moved. Even the air felt like it was holding its breath. It should have felt like closure. It didn't, because somewhere between the trees and the silence, I could already feel it. The shift, the weight of something waiting to fall. I thought the fight was over. I didn't realize it was only changing shape. 3 days after the lake weekend, a text came through. "You didn't listen. This is what consequences look like." It didn't sound angry. It sounded finished. I showed it to my husband. He said, "Ignore her. She wants attention." I said, "She can buy a mirror." We both tried to laugh, but the sound fell flat. The house felt smaller after that. I kept checking the windows without knowing why. The next morning, someone knocked. A woman with a clipboard stood on the porch. "Mrs. Whitaker, I'm with Child Protective Services. We received a report, just a routine check routine." Right. I let her in because refusing would look suspicious. She walked through the rooms, calm, polite, writing things down, asked about school meals, sleep, opened the fridge, looked at the books on the shelf. Lena watched from the stairs, holding her bear. The woman smiled at her. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. When she left, she said, "You'll hear from us soon." Then she was gone. I locked the door and sat on the floor until my hands stopped shaking. The message from my mother played in my head. This is what consequences look like. I didn't need anyone to tell me who had made the call. That evening my phone buzzed again, a voicemail this time. "I hope you understand we had to do something. You're not yourself lately. We just want her safe." We had to do something, like reporting a pothole. My husband said, "We'll wait it out. These checks are routine." I nodded, but my stomach wouldn't listen. I checked the mailbox 3 times a day, flinched at every number I didn't know. Silence started to sound like ticking. One night I laughed, too loud, too sharp. It scared both of us. Then I opened my laptop and started ending things. Transfers, gone, trip fund, canceled, shared account, closed. I wrote one email. All financial support ends immediately. No greeting, no signature. Then I moved the money into a new account for Lena. At least something good could come from their cruelty. Still, every sound made me jump. Every time the mail hit the floor, I froze. A week later, another knock. My parents, my brother behind them like backup. My mother smiled the way people do when they're selling forgiveness. "Natalie, let's stop this. We've all gone too far. You called CPS on me," I said. "You could have had her taken away." My father stepped forward. "We just wanted professionals to check. You've been emotional, we thought." I cut him off. "You thought you could scare me into coming back. You thought a report would make me crawl. You were wrong." My mother's smile twitched. "We just want to make peace," she said, like this was a board game we'd both gotten too competitive about. "Peace," I said. "You made a false report. That's not peacekeeping. That's gambling." With my life and hers, her voice wobbled. "It got out of hand. We were worried. She didn't sleep for days," I said. "Every knock, she thought someone was coming to take her. And you knew what calling them would do. You did it anyway." My father tried the reasonable tone. "We can't change it now. Let's just move forward." "That's the thing," I said. "You don't get to move forward like this was a misunderstanding at brunch. You crossed a line. You can't uncross it." My mother reached out, palm up, still trying the soft sell. "We're family." "Not anymore," I said. "Family doesn't weaponize fear, and I can't spend my life explaining that to people who enjoy pretending it's a game." She blinked fast. "So that's it, I said. "You made your move. This is mine." For a second, no one spoke. My brother looked at his shoes. My father cleared his throat. My mother nodded once like she'd just lost a round she thought she'd win. "You'll regret this," she said softly. "Probably," I said, "but at least I'll sleep." The door clicked shut between us. Clean, final. Through the glass I saw the mailbox flag up. For a second I thought the letter had come. It hadn't, just junk mail. The waiting kept going. 2 more days, then it came. Plain envelope, government logo. I sat at the table staring at it until my husband said, "Open it." I did. No further action required. 5 words, I didn't cry. I just started breathing again. A year later, the family looks like 2 different maps that used to overlap. Half the cousins still message on birthdays. The rest pretend I died of stubbornness. The lake weekend is smaller now. Our side of the tree only, but it works. Lena runs with the cousins whose parents decided silence wasn't loyalty. She knows who's safe, who's kind, who still flinches when my mother's name comes up. That's more self-awareness than most adults have. Every few months I get updates from the neutral camp. My parents canceled the retirement trip. The travel fund dried up when I stopped filling it. Mom complains about having to work at her age. Dad mutters about downsizing. Apparently, early retirement isn't as relaxing when you have to clock in. I don't feel triumphant, just done. They built a world that ran on my money and my silence. I pulled one plug and the lights went out. Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it for them, losing us just to stay in charge. Then Lena laughs from the next room and the thought disappears. She's fine. We're fine. That's the only scoreboard I need.